Now at 6, night one of the Republican National Convention. Comprehensive coverage as party leaders make their case for 4 more years of a Trump presidency. It is the first night of the RNC, and we are joined by KTLA 5's panel of political analysts.
Political consultant and analyst Matt Klink and civil rights attorney and policy advisor Sonia Diaz. And this goes out to both of you. The RNC kicked off half an hour ago. A couple of speakers already. I'm curious what you think about the tone of the RNC as it kicks off day one.
Sure. So I think you're going to see a mix of a couple things. It's going to be they're going to talk about the optimism that exists, the American exceptionalism, the desire to cut taxes and to keep America great again. And they're going to counter that strongly with the doom and gloom that existed in the Democratic National Convention last week. And frankly, the lack of real discussion about anything from a policy perspective, massive tax increases, the ridding of America of fossil fuels, the Green New Deal, not supporting the police. So I think you're going to get a mixture of optimism for the future, but you're also going to get them really drawing sharp contrast with what they will call a radical agenda that may fit well on the coast, but doesn't fit well for the rest of the United States.
Sonia, a convention for an incumbent president can be challenging in the best of times. A very popular name. Most voters have a firm view of where they stand on the president and his performance. But this president comes into a convention week with a backdrop of a deeply divided country and the twin threats of a pandemic and a struggling economy. His opportunity this week to control the narrative, at least for the next week.
Well, the real opportunity for Trump and the Republican Party is that they're coming in second. So they already know what the Democratic National Committee said last week during their convention and can add to not policy, but values, American values, and the way that the Republican Party, particularly President Trump and his family, see a future under Vice President Biden. And I think that that means that they will be presenting a stark picture, using terminology and a vision that America will not sustain itself if VP Biden and Senator Kamala Harris were elected, and that he, Trump, alone is the key to getting through the coronavirus. Now, as we saw last week, various speakers make clear that America is at a crossroads, that too many people are facing infection and the unnecessary loss of life. I believe that President Trump is going to assert that he has done the best job, that his travel restrictions were right on time, and that he was a proponent of masks throughout this pandemic. So I hope that we will have fact-checking in real time, but I suspect that he will promulgate a future of America that is better than that of something under the auspice of VP Biden.
So much to get to, and of course we'll have more on opening night of the RNC coming up on the news at 6:30. Thank you to our panelists, Matt and Sonia. We'll see you a little bit later. Our live convention coverage begins at 7 p.m. And for updates anytime, just visit KTLA.com or the KTLA mobile app. Let's take a deeper dive into what we've already seen and what's still to come tonight during the convention.
We are joined by our KTLA 5 panel of political analysts, political consultant Matt Klink, and civil rights attorney and founding director of the UCLA Latino Policy and Politics Initiative, Sonia Diaz. Thank you both for being with us. Matt, to you first. The president planning to make an appearance not just on the last night of the convention, but on every night of the convention. What do you make of it?
That should surprise no one. This is clearly an election about Donald Trump, and he believes he's his best spokesperson. He's going to be there every single night. So convention be damned. He's going to come out and tell the American people what he thinks every single night.
And Sonia, we just heard the president with this thought. Let's play it first, and then I want to hear your reaction about taking the election away. Let's hear.
The only way they can take this election away from us is if this is a rigged election. Don't let them take it away from you. Don't let them take it away.
Sonia, your reaction to that.
President Trump's allegations that vote by mail and universal vote by mail are somehow fraudulent and unsafe are baseless. These are a new contemporary part of attack on the right to vote, particularly the right to vote for voters of color. That is not only a historical trend in this country, but something that has been made possible and accelerated in states like Arizona, Texas, Florida, and Georgia after the U.S. Supreme Court gutted Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act under Shelby County. Our research at UCLA, including research from the Voting Rights Project, has made clear that vote by mail is safe. It also leaves a paper trail, which is counter to any claims of it being fraudulent, and is widely used by the electorate that tends to be older, more affluent, and white. And so the president has said that vote by mail is fraudulent. We've seen all of the things happening to the United States Postal Service, but there also seems to be a tendency to equate the fact that Democrats that are polled seem to want to vote by mail at twice the rate as Republican voters who are polled. That is unique because we are in a global pandemic where it is unsafe to be in close physical distances with other people without protective gear. We also know that our polling workers and volunteers tend to be elderly people, like my neighbor Helene right across the hall, and they simply can't do this job in November, and we need to keep everybody safe. So it comes as no surprise that vote by mail, something that is tried and true, is somehow going to be the demise of the American democracy.
Matt, Republicans are painting a theme this week that is described as uplifting with promise. And despite what we're dealing with in not just the pandemic, but the economy, the president's numbers on the economy remain relatively strong. That could perhaps be a surprise to some.
Well, if you look at the survey research on the matter, more voters believe that Donald Trump has better plans for America and its economic future than Joe Biden. And let's face it, Joe Biden didn't spend a lot of time talking about his $4 trillion 10-year tax plan that hits 82% of the American public. So this is all going to come out this week. And once the two sides ultimately end up debating, trust me, Donald Trump will outline his plan for the economy. And let's face it, the Obama-Biden team was replaced in 2016 because the voters weren't happy with them. Now, Donald Trump capitalized on that. The challenge is who's got the better plan for the future. That's what remains to be seen at this point.
Former Fox News anchor Kimberly Guilfoyle gave a speech. She's also the girlfriend of Donald Trump Jr., who's also going to speak later tonight, saying that she's a mom, a proud Latina, a proud supporter of President Trump. Among things that she said, that President Trump is the law and order president. Here's a clip of what she said just moments ago.
From the beginning, when President Trump spoke about making America great again, he was speaking about that shining city on a hill and restoring the beacon of light that once shined so bright. His promise was to put America first, and he has.
So, Sonia, does she reach out to, I mean, the first thing that she said really was that she's a mom and a proud Latina. Does she reach out to those people that aren't in his base right now with that kind of speech?
Well, we saw this from the RNC chairwoman, who made no mention of her famous uncle, and instead identified herself as a housewife, despite the fact that she runs one of the biggest operations in the country, which is the Republican National Committee. We've heard a lot from President Trump about housewives and how that is different than women who are in the workforce, and that America being great is something that should really be preserving the nuclear family. Now, what we know from the policies about this city on a hill is that we are in the middle of absolute chaos. Over 175,000 Americans have died due to coronavirus pandemic, ineffectiveness of leadership here in this country that starts at the White House and trickles down to all of our leaders across this country. The other thing that's really clear is that despite gains that the Trump administration and Republican Party may want to say and assert were made in Wall Street and in the stock market, there still are a swath of Americans who are having trouble paying rent, having trouble putting food on the table, having trouble affording high-speed internet access for their children to go to work. And what we know is that there are more unemployment claims, over 55 million, than we've ever seen in this country, and that is Americans out of work since March. And this is more than the Great Recession, which President Obama and VP Biden inherited from President G.W. Bush. So we're talking about this idea of a city on a hill, a beacon of light, the American promise, the fact that America is great. And the RNC is going to continue to hammer home that message while providing this chaotic semblance of what a world would be like under the leadership of VP Biden. That said, there's no mention of the coronavirus pandemic and the loss of work that so many Americans are grappling with as we are forced to stay home so that we don't unnecessarily threaten other people's life.
Matt, immediately following Kimberly Guilfoyle, we heard from Congressman Steve Scalise. I believe we have a soundbite we can roll now and react on the other side.
The left wants to defund the police. This is personal to me. I wouldn't be here without the bravery and heroism of the men and women in law enforcement who saved my life. President Trump stands with those brave men and women. Joe Biden has embraced the left's insane mission to defund them. While Joe Biden made hollow promises when he chaired the Senate Judiciary Committee, Donald Trump took action and delivered criminal justice reform.
What do you make of it?
Some powerful remarks. Again, we have to remember, Donald Trump's not campaigning to people in Los Angeles or San Francisco or New York City. He's campaigning to people in the middle of the country, the folks that the liberal left calls the flyover states. And defunding the police is scary. And when you see cities like Seattle and Portland and Minneapolis and Kenosha, Wisconsin and Chicago and New York City, when you see cities led by Democratic governors and mayors burn, that scares a lot of people, especially when you have people talking about defunding the police. You can be pro making sure that cops do the right thing and don't do inappropriate things, but you can also be pro-police. And that's what Democrats have been shockingly silent on, and that is not going to play well in middle America.
All right, Matt Klink and Sonia Diaz with analysis on night one of the RNC. We're going to take a quick break here and be back with our special coverage of the Republican National Convention.
And that is the end of night one of the Republican National Convention, a night when we saw speeches from former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley in what may be a preview message of a potential run for president herself in 2024. We heard from the president's son, Don Trump Jr., who spoke for the better part of 10 minutes and began and ended with the economy. And there you saw at the end South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, again, heavy on tax cuts and the economy. Heavy on tax cuts, the economy, on women, on diversity. We do want to welcome back our panelists. And of course, we have political consultant Matt Klink, and also civil rights attorney and founding director of the UCLA Latino Policy and Politics Initiative, Sonia Diaz. And let's start with you, Sonia. We ended here with Tim Scott. We also heard from Maximo Alvarez. Did you feel, and Kimberly Guilfoyle, did you feel that the Trump campaign was trying to hit hard on the Latino vote and also for those that are undecided and independents of the Latino vote?
I think that there was clear pandering from both Black and Latino speakers at the RNC tonight that had ideas such as, I know socialism because I'm from Puerto Rico, and that's simply factually incorrect. Puerto Rico is part of the United States of America. It is a colony. I apologize, my dog is in the background. And we also know from Senator Tim Scott, he essentially was the only speaker who really talked about policy and made a case for conservatism. And we saw from others, whether it was the Guatemalan sisters talking about her mom coming from Guatemala, which is a country that is the recipient of international wars and attacks on its sovereignty because of the United States of America. And we also know that it is one of 3 countries in the Central American Triangle that has seen an influx of migration and refugees fleeing economic devastation, fleeing criminal organizations, some of which were taught how to be good criminals here in the United States, including here in Los Angeles. So it was very confusing, if I can be candid. But there was a sense that America's diversity breeds opportunity. And it was in some ways doublespeak, if you will, because the policies promulgated by the Trump administration have not been policies that are indicative of genuine economic opportunity. Most certainly that's the case with the coronavirus pandemic today, when people are out of work and simply cannot pay their rent or mortgage.
Matt, who tonight, in your view, had the best chance of reaching voters who are not already supporting President Trump?
If you listen to Tim Scott, he was incredibly powerful. Nikki Haley gave a fantastic speech, optimistic speech, American exceptionalism, very, very positive. And Heisman Trophy winner Herschel Walker gave a marvelous speech. I think by and large, Sonia forgets to mention some things: the lowest African-American unemployment, lowest female unemployment, lowest Latino unemployment. I mean, all of the good things that the Trump did until the pandemic knocked him back on his heels. That being said, it was optimistic, and they painted a stark picture that Joe Biden will take you back to a not so bright past that is not where America wants to be.
Anarchy, radicals, a Biden radical left agenda. Those were a lot of some of the key words that they hit on night one here of the Republican National Convention.
And our time is short. We have 30 seconds left, and we'll sign off. To Matt and Sonia, thank you both for your time. We'll see you back here tomorrow night for night 2 of the Republican National Convention. Thank you for joining us as well, and we'll see you back here for the news at 10 and 11. Good night.